right, guys. I thank everybody for tuning in. This is another episode. This is Law Nation, and I have my guy, Cowboys Blog, on the other end. Joe.
Hey, what's up, Law?
What's up, man? It's another show for everybody. It's one of those things, man. The name of this is Jason Garrett, the answer. And one way or another, somebody gonna have to figure it out, because either you're gonna put all your chips in on Jason Garrett, or is it time? And I do know that he was coach of the year last year, but it just seems as though we may be treading the same entire ropes from last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. What are your thoughts on Jason Garrett?
I think it's I think Jason Garrett is an interesting coach, because it's like, you know, we had Wade Phillips, but before we even hired him, they had Jason Garrett in place. So, you know, there was already that kind of like, you know, is this going to be Jerry Jones, you know, grooming of a coach? And, you know, that's what it's been. You know, Jerry has literally groomed him from the offensive coordinator, assistant coach, and now full-blown coach. And I don't know if he's going to go anytime soon unless we have like consecutive losing seasons. I think Jerry, you know, will give him that leeway. I think he believes in his program, you know, building through the draft, and you know what they have in place with Will McClay. But as far as how I think or what I think about him, I think you know, I think he's still learning on the job, man. To be honest, and what's crazy is he's been doing this for the Cowboys for a while, so there's definitely a lot on the argument side. You know, is it time to move on? Yeah, I could see both sides of the coin, you know, to keep him or not to keep him. So I don't know. It's kind of just one of those things, man. But I think Jerry would have to see like consecutive losing seasons to even consider making a move there.
Yes, indeed. So I lamented before. Normally, this coaching staff or basically Jerry Jones, he really don't just exile the whole entire staff. What he does is he like to promote from within. He did it all pretty much his whole entire tenure here, being the owner. So we can only think that if Jason Garrett is gone, then you have Scott Linehan. If Scott Linehan gone, then you have Rob Marinelli. He's really not going to step outside too much further than that unless Will McClay know how to coach. So it seems as if though it's going to be more of the same. And just by looking at everything, is Jason Garrett the answer? One can argue and say, hell no, because it's just going to be the same thing over and over and over again. So we maybe, like you said, beating a dead horse, but it's just one of those things as far as the coaching adjustment, the coaching philosophy altogether. It's just going to be the same thing. But at one hand, you can look at it as far as coaching with tenure. Outside of him and Marvin Lewis, everybody who have the same amount of tenure that he has hardware. And it just seems as though I really don't think that that he's going to take us there.
Yeah, it's I want him to get us there, you know, and I think we've had, I mean, that unfortunate season in 2014 was a really good team. That was a good squad. Last year, obviously, was another good one. So, I don't know. I think we're really close. I think next year is really when we're going to see the dividends on defense. We're kind of seeing some of those early signs of life on defense, and they're looking good this year. So, I don't know, man. That's just I think we're gonna have to go through some growing pains this season. To be honest, it's kind of how it feels to me.
Hypothetically speaking, right? What would it be if, because you know this defense been our Achilles heel for a minute, and I'm not trying to throw any shade at Rod Marinelli, because I love the cover two scheme in its whole entirety. I love the fact that if once you get the right type of players out there to play the defense, to fly out to the ball and get into the mix and create turnovers, if you can get that 2000 and 2001 Buccaneers team throughout, I guess they didn't fall off until like 2004 or 5-ish. If you can get the team to play like that, then of course but it was a mixture because you know, you had Tony Dungy in the mix, and then you had the John Gruden in the mix. But what if we was to flip this thing? Because collectively, I would think that although Jason Garrett's coaching philosophy is mundane, is unenthusiastic, or very subtle in a way, I wonder what this team would have been like if Wade Phillips was the head coach, right? Well, not the head coach, but was the head defensive coordinator, and just have Jason Garrett as the head coach, and that whole role reversal. Because I think that Wade Phillips, although he was not a head coach, but I think he had this defense, looking back when he was coaching, top 10, top 7. I think there was top 9 at one point. Closest they one year that was top 7. So I wonder what would have been, what it would have been if Wade Phillips was the head defensive coordinator while Jason Garrett was the head coach. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that might have been a good dynamic, because I mean, we know that Wade kind of is a player's coach. They say that. So sometimes those guys, if they don't hit the playoffs their first 2 years, that player's coach culture, it fades really quick, and that's what happens every time with Wade Phillips. So yeah, I think it would have been cool to see him as a defensive coordinator with Garrett as the head coach, but they always decided to go a different route, and switching to the 4-3 has been a way bigger issue than we thought. We thought, okay, well, we got a couple of guys in the 3-4 that can transition to the 4-3, we'll be okay. But the transition has been painful. We've missed on a lot of picks, and we've just been adding entry level guys to be on defense, and it's hurting us.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so if we look at that from I guess the hindsight angle, hindsight is 20/20, as they say. Maybe it would have been something different. I'm sitting in the chat box. Someone put out that the LSU old coach Miles, he's probably a good candidate. The other guy, Jim Harbaugh out there of the world, be a good selections, and the coach Nick Saban will be a good pedigree for us. What are your thoughts on those coaches?
Man, I think the only one that I would consider from those groups, from those guys, would be Jim Harbaugh. He's one of these guys that will install a program and get the team to contend. He's done that in college when he was at Stanford, did it with the 49ers, took him all the way to the Super Bowl, and Michigan. He's having some decent seasons there. So for me, I would like him. The other guys that don't really enthuse me much, to be honest.
Okay, so I mean, you put Jim Harbaugh, what was his name? Jim, right? It was Jim, not John, right? Jim Harbaugh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you put Jim Harbaugh in this particular offense, for once, we know the defense is going to play balls out, lights out. However, you're going to put Taco in the right places, because we all know that Taco is Taco at this point. And Jordan Lewis is of the world. He will have a better understanding of Jordan Lewis. And if we look at it from the aspect of what Jimmy Johnson did, right? A lot of people were saying in the early 90s, of those who can remember. I know my guy Roy in the house, he would know for sure. He was around that time during the 90s, and he already had this knowledge of all of the college players, right? He already had scouting tapes. He already knew that who was going to be the ones that they'll be able to play on the next level, a la the Michael Irvins of the world, and Michael Irvin was drafted before Jimmy Johnson, but you kind of understand the angle I'm going to. He already knew Troy Aikman's pedigree and all that, so he kind of scouted. He knew the players before they was coming out into the NFL. If the Cowboys just say right now, we just gonna part ways with Jason Garrett at the end of this year, bring in Jim, and understand that Jim, we know he's a fireball. Maybe that type of pedigree can work out with Jerry Jones. If they have some type of upfront agreement, then that would put Jim in a place whereas he knows all the Big Ten players, right? He knows all of the scouting players in that region. He'll know all of the players that's in California area too, as well, in south of Florida. He will know all those players, and he'll be able to say, hey, you mix that with Will McClay, you might have a firepower of a coach. And the philosophy of, even if he can make Colin Kaepernick looks great out there right on the field,
exactly,
you can only imagine what he can do with a Dak Prescott.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Now this is just us thinking out loud, or pretty much hoping. But what type of thoughts would you think that Jim Harbaugh would bring to this team?
Oh, I mean, he'll make them physical, a lot more physical than what we are. Sometimes, people question our physicalness, on either side of the ball. So, you definitely would bring that to both sides of the ball. And he's I would say he's a little bit, he's definitely more of a disciplinarian than Garrett is. So I think that would help out as well.
There's some honorary mentions here too as well. They mentioned John Gruden as a coach, Bill Cowher, and Dan Mullen. As a disclaimer, Bill Cowher is pretty much Jason Garrett is a modern day Bill Cowher without the spitting and screaming, because it took Bill Cowher a long time before he can win that hardware.
Yeah, that's true.
It took him a long time. But Dan Mullen, I don't know, this is going to be another level for him. Maybe he would put Dak in the right position. Maybe he'll roll out some plays. Anytime he coached Tim Tebow and coached also Alex Smith, maybe he can. And he coached, of course, Dak Prescott. So maybe he can put the right plays or the right offense together for Dak Prescott. But are we just beating a dead drum or beating a dead horse, because is the offense really the trouble right now?
It is the offense, but it's because they're unable to execute it. I think the losses on the offensive line, we haven't really gelled. It took Zeke a little bit here to gel with the offensive line, and they're just, it's not last year's offensive line, but we now that we're dealing with who we have there, we know what upgrades we need to be looking at.
Yeah. Well, somebody said Stephen A. Smith would be a perfect pick, right? Yeah, that's crazy, from Clay Patterson. Yeah, and Stephen A. Smith don't probably know how to fight out of a wet bag, But it's one of those things, man, as we look at this Jason Garrett coaching tree and his philosophy and his thought track and his mindset. But moving along from Jason Garrett, what are your thoughts and concerns on Ezekiel Elliott situation? Is he everything for this Cowboys team, or is he, quote unquote, it was more so Tyron Smith absent was the issue from this last game from yesterday?
Oh, yeah, we definitely missed Zeke. The guys that we had in there, they were pretty ineffective, but people were in the backfield a lot. The line in general didn't play well. Zach Martin whiffed on the block at one point, and obviously Kaz Green got ate up alive. There was we didn't even have a left tackle out there for the game. It was a free run to Dak every single snap. So yeah, man, it's a crazy thing, man. This game of football, the parody, the NFL loves it. You don't know who's going to survive all the injuries, and it's all about the teams that can. And the Cowboys, they're not doing a good job of surviving injuries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we're talking about injuries and we talk about adjustments, I think that the Eagles coach, right? I forgot his name. I think Peterson or something like that. This is his pretty much. He's pretty much a sophomore coach, right? The rookie year was last year. He missing his middle line. I had so many Eagles fans to lament to me the fact that he is missing his middle linebacker. He's missing his starting running back. He is missing his left tackle, and they still put up 30 to 40 points, and Carson Wentz is throwing the ball down the field. But the thing gets differently between Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott is that for once, you can look at it from this aspect. The wide receivers are helping him out. They are catching the ball when it hits their hands. He's elusive when he's being blitzed, and the fact that they're backup running backs, they don't have this carousel. Everybody's sitting in and filling in their gaps now. They heard him put the Band-Aid on it when they went and got Ajayi A-Train. I think that's his nickname. But the problem is when people try to do comparisons, Dak Prescott can only do what Dak Prescott can do, and he can only go out there and play how the coaches are calling the plays. We all know that Peterson, the coach for the Eagles, come from a offensive-minded philosophy. West Coast offense, get the ball out quick. We really don't know what type of offense that Jason Garrett is running. Do you know?
Well, I'd supposedly it's the North Turner type offensive scheme. But they have a mix back there with Linehan. He kind of puts his own flavor to it. Some of the plays I don't like myself.
You're talking about when they line up in the I formation or the pro set, and it's kind of like it's kind of like a poor man's college play, whereas Dak keeps the ball, and 9 times out of 10 he gives it to the running back, and they get about -2 yards or 2 yards, right?
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things. When we're talking about on-field adjustments, right? From the armchair quarterback or armchair coaching, why they didn't put nobody on their side where Green was at, why they didn't flex or run towards his side, was baffling to me. And those are things that you have to understand. I think Dungy, he pulled that out and called that out on the America's Game of the Week or what have you, whatever that Sunday night game was. He said that the adjustments were poor, and they just didn't make the proper reads down there when they didn't make the proper adjustments, basically. So you have this defensive tackle flying off the edge, Claiborne, looking like he's the second coming of Reggie White, and it's just one of those things where the coaching philosophy and the staff altogether just didn't make those adjustments, and we looked the way we looked. Granted that they had the aided of help with the officials not calling certain plays, not calling certain calls, but beyond that, it just seems like to me the physicality was all on the Atlanta Falcons. They out physical us, if that's the word.
Yeah, they did. They looked like the superior team by halftime. They just, it looked bad. Like the prospects of winning that game at halftime, you just knew how it was going to go. And it was sad to watch.
It was, man. It's just one of those things. Whereas I'm sitting here looking like, wow. It made me think and say, okay, looking back at everything, looking at the title of this podcast, is Jason Garrett the answer? And it goes back to this same saying: when we play a team that's pretty much either on our level or beyond our level, either we play to their level or we just fall back and play so under the level that we should be on, is that we see these type of games. And it just kind of seemed like that too as well. Kind of last year, I think against the Minnesota Vikings game, it was just one of those games where we struggled. Although we won, it just seemed like one of those games where we kind of could have blew the tops off on them, but if we just kind of stooped down to their level.
Yeah, I hate that, and that is one attribute or one that's a Jason Garrett team. They do that stuff, and it drives me crazy. It's been like that for years. Well, they don't dominate somebody, like blow somebody out. Just be on somebody, and it's like you said, they go down to the lower level, and they play to that lower level. It's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. And I was talking to some of the people at the job. You decompress a little bit, and then they just mentioned one other thing. Is that when Jimmy Johnson was out there and they was up by 30, they didn't take the foot off the gas. It would seem like we want to break their wheel so that the next time they play us, they understand that they playing the Dallas Cowboys.
Exactly.
And it's just looking back at Jason Garrett tenure. He's been here for a long time, for a while, right? We look back at the I think it was 2007 or 8 or 9. We was beating the dog breaks out of the not Denver Broncos, but we were beating the dog breaks off the Detroit Lions. And although one can say, Tony Romo passed a few interceptions, but they came back, and it was just seems like we let up. And then I think one time, one of those years too as well, we was beating the dog break off of the Green Bay Packers, and it was the same philosophy. We let up, and that led to yesterday, it led to the Orlando Scandal jumping into the face of Jason Garrett, saying, quote unquote, he was saying that we are better than this. We shouldn't let up, even though we losing. We should still go out swinging, still go out with a fight. And I think that sometimes Jason Garrett don't finish the fight, although he had that as his mantra last year.
Yeah, it does seem like that. Like where's the emotion? He seems too stoic, like just like that clip there of him clapping.
Yeah, that's why I put that clip up there. Just continuously clapping, and people can close their eyes and see he's just gonna be clapping.
And that's what we loved about Jimmy Johnson. You would look at him; they would show him on the sideline ripping into somebody, letting them know that they weren't getting it done. He wouldn't. I mean, he was. We need that, man. I wish we had a coach like Jimmy. I really do.
The last coach that was closer to that or closest to that was Parcells.
Right.
And I still, to my grave, I would say this. The next year, after the Romo fumble, what have you, and he retired.
Yeah.
If Parcells would have stayed that one more year, we would have been hosting the Lombardi Trophy.
That's how I felt about that, man. That's exactly how I felt about that.
Yo.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's just how it goes, man. And hold on, we got somebody else joining into the house too as well. But
yeah, guys got me.
Yeah, we live in the flesh.
Cool.
Yeah, so the topic of the show is Derek, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's Derek from the Dallas Prospect guys. Tune into the website too as well. The topic of the show, Derek, is Jason Garrett the answer?
I have serious questions about Garrett and everything. I actually think yesterday was probably his worst performance I can remember. Just not just from coaching, but even just in preparation. The fact that they never could make an adjustment to give help to Chaz Green when he clearly looked like pretty much a freshman offensive lineman out there. And nothing against Claiborne. He's a solid defensive line player, but Chaz Green made him look like a Pro Bowler.
Yes, indeed. He used actually two moves, a bull rush, speed rush. And somebody can argue and say, yeah, they lined up wide 9, but he used two moves the entire night. And you mean to tell me that's going to give you 6 sacks? Impossible against anybody else. I know Byron Bales got out there and he laid an egg, but you just can't throw nobody out there in the fourth quarter and think they're going to do anything out there. And there goes to show you, regardless of if that's the case, right? We should have had 6 or 7 sacks against the Washington Redskins, because was they picking people from like the Freds and the Targets and Walmart to play offensive line and tackle?
Yeah, they had at least 4 of their linemen who were out for the game, including, of course, Trent Williams, their best lineman. So, yeah, good comparison there.
Right. So,
what up?
What's up, Vach? We got Vach Lombardi in the house too as well. We got a
Listen, man. I just wanted to come in and make 3 points because I ain't even got my microphone set up. I probably sound ragged. I'm still on vacation in Mississippi. I just wanted to make 5 points and I'm gonna leave. Can I do that?
Yeah, go ahead. Do your thing.
Listen, man, these Cowboys fans, man. Yeah, look, man. I don't want to play Russian roulette with my doggone head coach. I've seen my head coach win football games. Now, if you want to be like the doggone Chicago Bears, Lovie Smith go 10-6, and you want to fire him, and then you go into coaching limbo, fine. If you want to be like LSU and doggone Les Miles can't beat Nick Saban, so you want to fire him, and now LSU is in coaching limbo. I don't want that for my. I don't want that for my team. We walked into this season Okay, knowing that we weren't gonna be as good as last year. It's the NFL, it's the salary cap era. That's what happens. So we may not be as we may not have as much depth as we had last year, and we may not be, just as good. Like we got younger people, so we expected more losses. But there is no way you can walk into a football game minus 5 Pro Bowlers. Your kicker, your left tackle, your middle linebacker, your star running back, somebody else, Dad's hurt. You cannot walk into a football game against a talented Atlanta Falcons team. Let's not forget that the Atlanta Falcons are talented. You can't walk into that football game and say, man, Chaz Green gave up 6 sacks. It's Jason Garrett's fault. That's unreasonable. Will y'all stop saying stupid stuff? Oh, my God, when Sean Lee left the game, the defense looked terrible. We knew that. Rod Marinelli can't tackle nobody, man. I just want us to use our thinking caps, man. Put your thinking caps on. But
all right, let me ask you this right here, Vach. Is Jason
go ahead,
is Jason Garrett the answer?
Is he the answer to us winning championships?
Yeah.
You can take a talented team and Jason Garrett and win championships, fam. My whole thing is it's only a few elite coaches in the National Football League. And Cowboys fans want Jason Garrett to be elite. He's not going to be that. You probably got Belichick. I put Andy Reid up there. I think highly of Tom Coughlin. And it's a handful of other people, man. You're not going to hit on an elite head coach every time like that. But what we have is a good head coach. If you've been a Cowboys fan for the past decade, you remember Wade Phillips as a head coach, how that team quit on Wade Phillips. You see Ben McAdoo in doggone New York right now. They're quitting on him. Jason Garrett shows up and these players play for him. They play hard. We just lost 5 Pro Bowlers and we're overreacting to a bad loss to a good football team that we showed up 5 Pro Bowlers less than we had yesterday.
I'm
not going to go for that, man.
No doubt. Let me ask you this, though. And you spitting fire, and I understand that, and we need that type of uneven type of temperament out there because for this fan base, so we can get some understanding and some clarity out there. So let me ask you this, with Jason Garrett, and I already said is he the answer? Who do you put him in the category of? I know you mentioned some players earlier, but who is Jason Garrett outside of Jason Garrett? But who is he in the categories?
Jason Garrett is he's a motivator. You know who else is a motivator? Pete Carroll is a motivator. He just happened to have a top tier defense. Like when you look at Dallas, right? And I don't know where these over expectations come from, but the Dallas defense ain't good. Sean Lee just make it work. You know what I mean? Like we really make money on our offense or whatever. All the talent is on offense. If we had more talent to play with, then there's no telling how much better we'll look at Jason Garrett. When you look at our football team, man, you know what you say, man? You go, man, boy, that offensive line, boy, man, Zeke, man, Dak. But, we got a lot of young guys at corner, man. If we had a Legion of Boom at corner, if we had a Jacksonville defensive line, we getting sacks with DeMarcus Lawrence, but he's picking on scrubs. David Irvin, he's really the only one that's whooping everybody. If we had that Jacksonville D-line, imagine how much better we'll look at Jason Garrett. We just looking at him bad because he's losing. And the thing that keeps me sane, Law, is when I look at the win against Kansas City. I wasn't saying none of this when we beat Kansas City. Rod is a genius. Linehan is creative, and Jason Garrett is a motivator. Everything works out when we win it, but we get so emotional, fam, when we lose a game like this. Oh, fire everybody. So we can bring in somebody like Lance Joseph, and next thing you know, the Denver Broncos falling off the face of the earth. Don't talk to me with that crazy stuff.
Wait. You got on some good topics there, man. And it's kind of like 50-50 in the lobby area too, as well, with the chat. Derek and Joe, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Who is Jason Garrett to you guys?
I don't feel like he's a bad coach by any means. I think I agree that he's a pretty good coach for the most part. My problem was just that the fact that they made no adjustments to protect Chaz Green in that situation. And I know a lot of that was just Chaz Green imploding in general, but that they never chipped or anything like that with a back. I think the only time I saw them really attempt it with, who was it? Keith Smith. Barely got a hand on him, which obviously that's I don't know. I didn't like that they didn't make any real adjustments to it, and the fact that they had all week knowing that they weren't going to have Tyron, and yet they looked so overwhelmed and just unprepared for how to even roll help against not even an elite rusher or anything like that, just a solid player in Claiborne.
Let me ask you this, man. When you going against Khalil Mack and Von Miller, you feel good using resources against those type of guys. You're not gonna put two people on Adrian Claiborne. The best thing to do
if he's got 5 sacks, I do.
He got 5 sacks, but that's on Chaz Green. That's not on coaching. That's Chaz Green playing terrible. And you can't pull Chaz Green and put in Byron Bell because he's worse. Now, I would have feel better, man. Look, put Lael over there, something, man. Like maybe that, but that's something that you do game plan wise. You can't do that in the middle of a game. You just can't keep moving this many parts because you got to think about the type of quarterback that Dak Prescott is. Like, you don't want to take away Jason Witten to block somebody because that's one of Dak's biggest targets. You know what I mean? You don't want Beasley chipping people in motion like that. So it was a rough spot to be in, but a lot of what coaches do is thought of, 3 days ahead. And nobody thought Chaz Green would get whooped by Adrian Claiborne. Like, we saw Chaz Green play last year at right tackle and he didn't die. He was competent. He was fine. You can't account for somebody laying an egg that big. Like, I've seen coaches, take a lot more fire than that. Then they'll calm down and go, okay, we need to do this, we need to do that, let's do that. But that's scheme wise. There's nothing you can account for your left tackle playing terribly. If your quarterback's playing bad, you can switch quarterbacks out, man. But you can't account for your left tackle being bad. We don't have moves for that.
Yes.
What about Garrett taking timeouts with 4 minutes left so he can set up and shotgun and let Dak keep getting killed? I mean, at that point, it's 27-7.
I'm fine with Jason Garrett making one mistake, but this other stuff ain't on Garrett, in my opinion.
That's a dangerous mistake when you got your franchise quarterback getting killed back there.
I agree, but I got to watch the film. I mean, it's not like we can run with Zeke. It's not too much we can do with Dez. We can't lean on the defense. So it was just one big poop sandwich, and it sucked, man. But man, let's move on to next week, man. People talking about firing Jason, it's making my neck hurt, man.
Right.
Well,
I think.
Go ahead.
I was going to say this one. I've actually put this more to Linehan in terms of a play calling sense. I think the turning point of the game when Dallas was down 17-7 and they drive down the field, their first possession of the second half, running to the right after. I think Alfred Morris only had like 8 yards in the first half. He gets gains on the drive of 14 and I think 20 yards. One of those, Lyle Collins flat out picks him up and just starts walking him forward. And as Dallas sets up first down from the 12, and they set up in shotgun, empty backfield, and then you have one of those 5 sacks for Claiborne. Dak gets just crushed from behind, and it's basically a drive killer. At that point, it knocks him. It's not like it knocked him out of field goal range, but at that point, you're setting up. I think it was like a 9-yard loss or something like that, and any chance of getting a first down significantly takes a hit. I think they didn't end up with like a hold, but it ends up topping off with the missed kick, 38-yarder by Nugent, and that's the turning point of the game there, because at that point Dallas was looking at maybe being down just 17-14, and instead they end up getting nothing on the trip. And I had a problem with the coaching staff, the call on that play when you're looking first down from the 12 to roll shotgun after you charge down the field running to the right. I feel like you should have at least run play action if you were going to pass it.
Something that I thought of too. Drive killers aren't good for an offense. That's big penalties, and like sacks or whatever. There was a sack or a holding call. Let me say it again clear. There was a sack and or a holding call on every drive except the like the second or third drive, and that's when we scored or whatever. But
from the 20.
But a sack and a holding call on every single drive.
Yep,
coaching can't fix that.
Yeah, it was 8 of 10 drives for the day. Yeah, I agree. My only problem, as I said, was just the call in that situation. I feel like you're setting yourself up in that case to go empty backfield shotgun when you've marched down the field running the ball. It's fine if you want to throw the ball, I think, in that case. But to have empty backfield and no extra help that direction, I feel like that was the turning point of the game because that set up the drive kill that we mentioned. But anyway, not to hijack the segment or anything. Law, what you got?
Well, you're right. When you move out of the philosophy of the pro set or the I formation, whatever formation they was running to that side, to the right side, and you go into a shotgun, of course you're gonna have the defensive backs, the defensive end pin the ears back and just go after the quarterback. The other thing that I hear that I see a lot in the chat box, of course, is the officiating, the refs being too much in control. I think Bosch did mention that too as well. It was such to the point where it was a big play down the field, and they'll call holding on Chaz Green, and I think coming from the mindset, Bosch, you played offensive. Were you a guard or a tackle?
I was a center.
You was a center, okay. So, but you still understand the temperament, and it's all about continuity. It's all about setting the pace and the tempo and being aggressive. And once you start getting the groove going, basically, and then they call holding. And I think Chaz, he was pretty much good. He held the guy to the inside. He had his hands to the inside, and the guy bull rushed him. He only had 2 moves the whole entire night. Claiborne had speed rush off the edge and bull rush. Those were the only 2 moves he did the whole entire night. And that bull rush, Chaz had him into the inside, and the officials, and I guess once Dez caught the ball or what have you, once Dak threw the ball, whatever, he turned his body and he fell, and they called a flag on that. And that's the drive killer. It went from first down to 1st and 20, and I think holding calls you can call on every play. And I'm not a conspiracy theory, for it to be 28 quarters for a non-holding call on the opposition, that's just baffling to me. What do you guys think on that?
It was definitely a poorly officiated game.
If you can't have holding and a sack on every single play, look, Law, I gotta go. I just wanted to come in and fuss at everybody in the chat by talking about fire Jason Garrett. Voch Lombardi, VOCHLOMBARDI. I will be breaking down this film. Holla, y'all. Appreciate it. Salute.
All right, Derek. What was your thought on that, man?
I mean, it was definitely a very, I think, poorly officiated game. 2 of those 5 sacks for Claiborne, he's grasping, not yanking Dak down by the face mask. It's not like it negates the sack. I mean, in terms of, that's not how he's getting Dak off guard, but it's still, regardless, it's a 5-yard penalty and an automatic first down. So 2 of those drives get killed by no calls. I think Dak got hit in the head another time without it being called. It's kind of like the Cam Newton thing. If you got a mobile quarterback, even if he's standing in the pocket for some reason, he doesn't seem to get the same respect and protection as a Tom Brady type or just a standard pocket quarterback. And, there were a couple times, I think there was different times in the game where I saw Ez and T-Will all laid out downfield. Ball nowhere near anything like that. Just kind of a shot to the head, shoulders, whatever, just to kind of knock them on their ass when, nothing's even going on down there. I think in one case, it was a tipped pass maybe. So in that case, it would be irrelevant. That's totally legal. But I just felt like there was a lot that was not called. And, then you would get the couple calls that are a crucial hold that draws everything back. So it felt pretty one-sided, but I don't think that's what won the game for Atlanta. I think it was the Sean Lee injury turning things, and then in the second half, especially Chaz Green just imploding.
Yes, indeed. Joe, what are your thoughts on all that? I think Joe.
We got Joe. All right, I guess it's just us for the moment.
But it's all good. It's just one of those things. I don't know what to put it at. When we talking about the officials, right? And when we talking about the prospect of the Cowboys offense and how stale it can get just in a turn or a flip of a switch. It's things of my concerns, and going back to the coaching philosophy, is Jason Garrett the answer? Pretty much so. You know, I'm looking at it from this aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is with Jason Garrett, I love his philosophy. I love the continuity that he have actually with the PR staff and with the owner. You know, because the last of our worries is that anything we're gonna go back and forth with the owner. We know that, right? So
yeah,
at some point you will ask yourself, there's no other coach that will be able to gel with Jerry Jones. It's going to be clashing, and it's going to go back to the carousel that Bosh Lombardi mentioned. So at some point, salute to Jackie. Thank you for joining in. At some point, we really got to understand that that's just how we're going to have to roll with, you know, because I don't think that anything is going to change beyond that.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I don't mean to say that Garrett is a bad coach. I don't think he is. I think he had a really bad week. That's week, you know, highlighted by a bad game where I don't feel we made any adjustments at all. And even the one or two little adjustments we tried, it's like they failed and then they just abandoned it altogether. And, you know, like I said earlier, calling a timeout with 4 minutes left or 3 minutes left, something like that, just so you can call more shotgun setups for Dak and let him keep getting killed. It's the point where it just was egregious and almost unforgivable at that point, just because at that point, you got to have Cooper Rush in the game at that point. I feel like you got to have one of your backups in, because you don't risk the franchise quarterback when it's clearly a lost cause at that point. That's where you just kind of run out the clock and get out of there, and you don't risk your major assets.
Yeah, you're right. So as we're looking at the other aspect of it, right? Ezekiel Elliott not there. The defensive sophomore slump, as you can say, with Anthony Brown. What are your thoughts on this whole that, and also with the NFL trying to impose the buyout or the I guess decommission of Jerry Jones? What are your thoughts on that?
So on the Zeke thing,
I know I threw a lot at you, but
yeah,
I try to put them in combination so we can.
Yeah, no worries. The Zeke thing, man, I don't like the whole notion of he's going to be out of the country for his entire suspension, whether that be 4 games or 6, out of the country time to quote unquote clear his head and train. That worries the heck out of me. And I know we've kind of lamented in the past how the way things are kind of set up with suspensions is you're not allowed to be around the facility. It's not just a matter of not being able to practice or play. There's only like one person associated with the organization, other than, I guess, teammates are allowed to have contact with you. But, you know, the organization itself has one person that can touch base with you every other week. And it just seems baffling to me that some of these guys who have issues, whether it be your Randy Gregory's or your Zeke, whatever, the worst thing you can do is just completely isolate them. I feel like isolating them from the franchise and, you know, all the people that they work with and who can presumably be good influences on them. So Zeke being off the leash and literally out of the country, where we have almost no tabs on him at all, that is very concerning for me. At this point, if I'm the NFL, I'm probably giving him a drug test the minute he steps back on U.S. soil. Just why not? I mean, they already have an axe to grind, and I don't know. I don't like any of that. But as for your Jerry Jones question, I don't have a lot of concern about that. I think they're just kind of on a lot of smoke, just like Jerry's kind of doing with the lawsuit and everything. I know his reasons extend beyond just the Zeke thing, but like it or not, a lot of people are going to say it's because of the Zeke thing, or at least in part because of it. I don't see, they're not going to take the franchise away from Jerry. It's just going to be a matter to me of maybe they have some kind of fines or some punishment they impose, but I don't think the stability of the league can handle having one of the major owners who, you know, just got inducted to the Hall of Fame be forced out like that so soon after, unless he just completely goes off his rocker. And even then, you just hand it to Steven or something, you know?
Yes, indeed. So it goes back to what the 105.3 the fan Mike Fisher says. The snake eating its tail. I really think that the revenue bringer of the NFL has been and always will be Jerry Jones and the Trailblazers. You know, just like the other guy for the Raiders for all those years. Just win.
Al Davis.
Yeah, Al Davis. These guys are pillars to the NFL, and it's just sad how the NFL try to go against those type of guys who all they want to do is win, and they know more about just bringing in revenue. I like the philosophy, and I know it'll never happen because of the salary cap era, because of the collective bargain agreement, and also the revenue sharing amongst the franchises. The Dallas Cowboys bring in so many dollars to the NFL. I think I did some type of report whiles ago about how these smaller franchises wouldn't even exist, like the Cincinnati Bengals of the world and Tennessee Titans and the Saints, if it wasn't for the revenue sharing algorithm that they do, that everybody gets a piece of the pie. Although you got the bigger markets bringing in that share of dollars coming in. And that deal was crafted from Jerry Jones. So it's just one of those things. Whereas if the NFL is barking up this tree, the snake eating its tail, I would wish that they could just somehow, some way say, okay, let's just grab the salary cap, and every team be standing on their own. Like say, old folks say, every tub stands on their own bottom, where every team stands for themselves. I guarantee you, everybody will be running towards Jerry Jones versus running away.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. So I don't know how long you guys were on before I jumped on. Did you guys already talk a little bit about the update on Sean Lee today?
No. Give me some updates.
So the reports are Sean Lee is looking at being out for 3 complete games here. We got 3 games in 12 days coming up, and they're pretty adamant that he's going to miss all 3 games. And by the time he would presumably return for that 4th game, which I'm trying to see what game that would be. If he returns for the 4th game, that's the Giants game. Like December. No, whatever. But I think he would return that Giants game, and that would be about a month of rest for him at that point. But I don't know that the defense can survive without him for that extent. At this point, I know he played the first quarter and a half against Atlanta, and for about a quarter and a half, the defense was picking up right where it left off with Kansas City. But, without him this year, the defensive stats double in the wrong direction. With him on the field, going into this game, they were 5-1, 0-2 without him. Their rushing yards allowed without him was about 164. With him was about 80. And their scoring defense was about 18 points a game with him. Without him, it was, granted, only a 2-game sample previously. Without him, the scoring defense was about 33.5 points. So significant drop back whenever he's not in the game. And, the second he went out in that game, the whole complexion changed. Atlanta went from not being able to run the ball at all. I think at the time he went out, Atlanta had -3 rushing yards. And then the first drive that they had after he exited, I think on that one drive alone, they had like 42 rush yards or something like that. So just immediately flipped the script there, and you really saw yet again what his value is. It's weird for one guy on a defense to mean that much to the rest of the team and its production. But I honestly think the Sean Lee injury and the Tyron Smith injury are more significant than the Zeke suspension, because both of those guys keep their units anchored, and you just see what you have behind them, and it's not a good look. I love Jalen Smith and his story, but man, he looked lost out there a lot in the game, and he was in some cases just running flat out to the wrong gap. I think on one of those plays, he actually knocks Anthony Hitchens out of the way of Tevin Coleman, just trying to, close on it. And, you get Coleman with a fairly good run after that. So
no doubt, man. That's a good perspective. But let's get it from another perspective too as well. We got a guest on too. Now he's going to give us a perspective, a broad view from the Atlanta Falcons point of view. This is Dan from Unintentional Grounding. You guys go to this page. He talks more so Falcons talk. He have a wonderful podcast and he does film reviews too as well. Dan, what are your thoughts on this game? We ate our crow already.
Well, thank you for letting me be on the show. It's really nice of you. And I appreciate being here. It's a surprise for all the Atlanta Falcons fans, kind of just surprised that it happened. We expected to come out and put up a fight and go out there and perform well, but we didn't expect, 8 sacks. We didn't expect, when you lose your 1A running back to have Tevin Coleman then come in and work as well as he did. And injuries aside, and at least on my show, I preach the next man up mentality, watching Lee go and leave the game, and then things kind of opened up for us. I saw Sarkisian and Matt Ryan, actually, if you guys were paying attention to that, open up the playbook actually, and saw Matt Ryan go out there and start checking plays even when Lee was in the game, kind of changing it up from what we have seen for the past 8 weeks, where it was just very scripted, and this game was a lot different. There was check downs, and there was change of plays, change of direction, and just utilizing players in the correct way. But that doesn't mean that we went out and we had the perfect game plan against, the boys. There was some points where we had help with injuries happening, and kind of some. I don't know about your left tackle situation, but that was horrid.
but can you just agree with us and level us with this right now, right?
Yeah.
Number 99 is not that great. Right or wrong?
You're not wrong, and it's surprising. But in 2016, when we had him, he was actually performing at a level that you saw against the Cowboys. That's, again, not to praise him, because he went up against a 3rd round left tackle who's been there for 3 years and has done diddly. But
SWAT, I'm gonna put SWAT on there.
But we saw Adrian Claiborne when he was playing for Tampa. Then he came over to Atlanta. We saw him playing at a high level, and then we lost him. And then he comes back this year, and he was not performing at a super high level. In fact, actually, Brooks Reed, who had a sack in this game, was performing at a better level than he was. And he comes out, Adrian Claiborne, and does this game. And I think it's less to do with Adrian Claiborne's skills, even though I want to praise him for what he did, than it is the left tackle just not blocking. It was like a turnstile. So, I mean, I wouldn't say any of the Falcons players could have gone on that side and gotten a sack, because that's obviously not true. But I will say that when you put up a veteran against someone who obviously doesn't know their job, there's going to be consequences. So I think that goes with any team.
So in the final minutes here, we got about 3 to 4 minutes top, right? We don't want to keep it too long, right? Kids got to go to bed and stuff like that. Salute to everybody that's in the chat box too as well. It's going to be a matchup if we decide to play to our full potential. Hopefully, even with the minuses of Sean Lee, it'd be a miracle. If you guys are for now 5-4, right? Same record, but you guys looking up to the Saints. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
so you guys in the same division for the most part. I know you hate to say that. I hate to say we're looking up to the Eagles, and we're finna play them. If these two teams went out, I think that it will be a possibility for us to meet again somehow down the line. Do you think if you flip the field, if you guys play in Dallas, would the same outcome be the same, or it's just one of those things where it's everybody said suited up and it was ready to play in that new stadium?
I think if we go to Dallas in the future, then there will be a different story to tell, and we will have to see that story played out, because we can't make predictions now. All I think that the Falcons are concerned with, and most of the fans are concerned with, is next Monday night.
Who y'all play?
That's Seattle.
Oh wow! Seattle. Okay, they're gonna have their backs against the wall. Although they have a great. They're not in your division, right?
No. We've got Panthers, Bucks, Saints.
So you got a freebie with the Bucks, and the Panthers are stepping it up this year. All right, so yeah, you guys may be fighting a hungry team down there, and it's always hard to play in Seattle. Derek, what are your thoughts on this before we wrap it up? Our chances on making the playoff, our chances on what our record win-loss. I know it's going to be a lot, but our chances on win-loss without Sean Lee in these next few games.
Well, if you're missing Sean Lee for 3 games, it's not a good projection. Obviously, leading off with Philadelphia playing the way they are, not having Sean Lee, and we don't know yet about Tyron. My guess is even if you can roll Tyron out there 70%, that's obviously 100 times better than what you're going to get with Chaz Green. But then you got a 3-day turnaround before Thanksgiving Day. So even if he can play the Philadelphia game, is it enough to win the Philadelphia game? Or do you then have him have that injury flare up or whatever, and then he can't play Thanksgiving against the Chargers, which, given what the rest of your schedule looks like, that's a must win. You can't afford to lose 3 more games, right? You got to be at least 10-6 if you're going to make the playoffs. We're sitting at 4 losses right now. You got to find a way to go basically win 5 out of 7. So if the Eagles are going to be a loss, most likely, then you got to find a way to get that Chargers win, the Redskins, and the Giants. All 3 of those are winnable, but you just gotta execute, and you gotta get something better out of the offensive line. I see Dallas right around that 9-7, 10-6 area. I don't have a solid feel yet, just because we've only seen 1 game without Tyron so far, and I'm willing to believe that as bad as that was, that's probably the outlier. And that's not the average performance you're going to see. I still don't know how much we miss Zeke. Even if you had Zeke in there with the way that side of the offensive line with Jonathan Cooper and Chaz Green were playing, I don't see it having been a different outcome in Atlanta, really. So, yeah.
The only thing I can say to piggyback off of that, maybe Adrian Claiborne, I think that's his first name, right? Adrian, number 99. Dan, maybe he don't crash upfield as fast because you got the likes of you got to respect the read options, you got to respect the Zeke factor of running towards him. So yeah, maybe you have that too as well. So we don't know what the score would be. Yeah, you're right. It could be the Denver Broncos all over again. But just listening into what you had to say, Derek, Dan, the Atlanta probably facing the same thing. You guys have to win. Maybe 5 out of the next 6 games, or whatever the last few games, you guys have to win. Have to win situation 2 as well. Every game is like a playoff game, basically.
Yeah, it's at this particular point, you're looking at the Panthers and the Saints right now with, the Panthers just beat us when we still didn't know our identity. I think we've kind of found our identity now, but it's an uphill battle. We need to beat Seattle. We need to be able to go and at least go 1-1 against the Saints, and we have to win against the Panthers. We have to go and beat up our division with the Bucks. That's where we're at right now, and it's the same situation. This is the turning point right here, where I thought, if we don't beat the Cowboys, okay, then that means we need to go ahead and start looking at the 2018 draft, because it's 10-6, 9-7 right there, kind of like you were talking about, is where we need to be able to go to the playoffs, because the NFC race is going to be a lot tighter than the AFC race is going to be, where it's very top heavy in the AFC. Whereas now in the NFC, you have a lot of players still in check. I saw an ESPN article, don't want to shout out anybody there, but the ESPN article stating, there's about 6 or 7 teams right now in this race, and the AFC is pretty much decided already. Whereas the NFC is just, there's a really big race going on, and Dallas is still in it. Atlanta is still in it. And there's still plenty of football to be played.
And believe it or not, and I know we're going to wrap it up, the Redskins still are in it, So our division is everybody, the game back. So And I think the Redskins, they did you guys a favor. Well, now they play Seattle. Seattle's not in your division, but the Redskins just playing. You never can count out Kirk Cousins. But before we run, Dan, where can they find you at?
You guys can find me on Twitter, first of all, at UNGR_show. And you can also find me on YouTube at Unintentional Grounding. That's where I do my Falcons content, as well as live shows covering the NFL. And once every little lonesome, I come over to Vosh Lombardi and Law Nation and come crack up with them.
No doubt, man. Salute to you and your team. Hey, you guys played. You guys was the better team yesterday. How eat the crow.
Hey, it happens every game where you just have to play better than the officials officiate, and that's what our coach kind of practices every week with our team. And I think that the officials did both of us wrong. There were some definitely missed calls, but it's good to be the winner this week. I don't know about next week.
No, it seems like you guys had 12 guys out there now. Come on now. Derek, man, what's up with the Dallas Prospect? Where can we find that at?
The Dallas Prospect, our website is the dallasprospect.com, blend of sports and pop culture. Got some great content actually from our Oklahoma correspondent this week, RJ Young, talking a little bit of the Sooners win over TCU. Of course, we got all the great Law Nation and Cowboys coverage there. And yeah, just trying to keep up with the general sports. I think we got a Sports Anytime with one of my frequent co-hosts, Eni and Duca, talking a little bit of NBA as well. So yeah, you can find us on Twitter at Dallas Prospect, and we are on Facebook as well, the Dallas Prospect.
No doubt, guys. And early on the show, we had Joe. He had to run his cowboysblog.net. You guys can go there and find all types of Cowboys article, news, and updates. He has a post that he posts pretty much every other day about Cowboys content. Please, guys, go out and follow their pages. And don't forget about my guy, Vosh Lombardi. He was on the show earlier. Go to his page. He's going to have a breakdown of all 22 films. And he also does more beyond the Dallas Cowboys content too as well. So if you guys need the information, go to his page, go to his Patreon page too as well. Support his work out there, because we know that this is a hard work to do. And I am Law Nations, and you guys are listening to nothing but the best. Salute. We out. Peace. Good show today, man. Cool.
Yeah, no trouble at all. Sorry, it took me a little bit to get on.